Hi, my name's Sharon. Thank you for coming and checking out Big Picture Living. I've always been quite big, and as a 5-year-old child I remember being taken to the hospital dietitian, and I quickly learned that if I lost weight I was a good girl, and if I put on weight I was a bad girl. And that really got ingrained in my head. But I also knew that eating food made me feel better. So right from a very young age, I used to use food to make me feel better. My family, although we were a very loving family, we didn't really talk about emotions and didn't express our feelings very well. So this became another reason to use food to help deal with the awkward feelings. So I continued putting on weight as a youngster, generally 1 stone for every year as I was getting older. At school I got bullied because of my weight. And then at about the age of 13 or 14, I started growing facial hair. And this became very disturbing, and I also wasn't having periods. So as I got older and older, I became more and more of a social recluse. However, in August '92, a friend of mine kept on begging me to come to a Christian camp with her in that August, simply because she wanted to use my tent. So kicking and screaming, I got dragged off to Faith Camp in Peterborough. And I didn't go to any of the meetings, and I made her life hell during that first few days. However, she kept on and persisting with me, and on the Wednesday evening she said, "Sharon, just come to one evening meeting with me." So I went, and I sort of sat there really didn't want to be there. But as the preacher got up, he started speaking straight to me. And the key verse that he said to me was, "There are people here who have a real fear that if you give yourself fully to God, then He will cause something bad to happen to you." And I knew straight away that he was talking to me, because as a child I'd had a lot of perforated eardrums in both ears, and I had this terrible, crippling fear of going deaf. And irrational as it is, as is most fears, I had this fear that if I gave my life fully back to God, then He would make me deaf. Now that sounds totally stupid, but to me it was a very real fear. But that Wednesday night in Peterborough, sitting in the big cowshed on the East of England showground field, I recommitted my life back to God. I got down on my knees and said, "Lord, this is my life. You know me inside out. Take me as I am. And I thank you that you love me." However, all through this time, although I was going on with God, the eating side of my life was still getting worse and worse. I still couldn't come to terms with the pain and the hurt and all the different emotions inside me. I was probably about 20 stone, and I'd started self-harming as well, because the food just wasn't hitting the right spot. It wasn't taking away the deep hurt. So the self-harming was just another way of trying to deal with the pain. It was a secretive, shameful experience, and my whole life seemed to be focused around shame and secrets, and I was getting really fed up at this time. So I was starting to get more confident, but deep down inside, the real Sharon was still curled up really tight and hurting. A few years earlier, I'd got to a desperate stage where I opened up and told my pastor's wife that I thought I had an eating disorder. I was a compulsive eater. So she then got me in contact with Helena Wilkinson, who was then running a charity called Kanos, and I spent a week with her over on the Norfolk coast. And it was a wonderful time, but I still couldn't express all the emotions that I'd for so long pushed down with food and self-harming. But it gave me a glimpse of how people could accept me for as I am. And it was my first chance to really meet and share a bit of time with other people who had eating disorders. For that first year, I had off sick with depression, and my life really hit rock bottom. The weight had continued to increase, and I continued to be really unhappy. Although people on the outside would have seen that I was really outgoing even and confident. I used to go ice skating, I quite enjoyed fitness, and I was starting to become a member at a gym, but the real me deep down inside was still shriveled up and hidden. A couple of years on, I was working with a guy who was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he was very open about his recovery from alcohol addiction. And over the two or 3 years that I'd known him, I'd seen how much his life had blossomed and how he just glowed. And eventually, in the summer of 2010, I plucked up the courage and I said, look, your problem with alcohol, I have with food. And he didn't laugh, he didn't say, oh, you know, just go on a diet, you'll be fine. He said, well, Sharon, he says, that there is a group called Overeaters Anonymous, and they work on the same 12 steps as AA, and he says, why don't you give them a try? Well, by this time I was 23.5 stone, and being only 5'7", that was quite a height. I was classed as morbidly obese, and I hated the phrase now, and I hated it then. But it made me think about where my life was going. At this stage, I was eating 2 or 3 whole gateaux at a time, 12 Mars ice creams, and self-harming as well. My life really was a mess. I had no particular social life, certainly no romantic relationships, and life for me just didn't seem to be going anywhere. I was like, what is the purpose? But I thought I was too far gone for OA. I thought they're never going to be able to help me. I've struggled for since I was 5-6 years old. But I ummed and ahed with it until October that year. And then October the 25th was a Monday. And I thought, it's no good, I've got to do something. I was so desperate. So I got on the internet, found the contact number for OA in Sheffield, rang them up, spoke to a lovely lady, and she assured me that I would be given a friendly welcome, that I wouldn't need to share anything, I wouldn't need to speak at the meeting, but just come along. Well, that day I ate my way through 2 big gateaux just to gain the courage to go. I drove over there, don't really remember the journey at all, and I got into that meeting room and I was just shaking with fear and trepidation so much. There were 6 of us in that meeting that night, and although I can't remember anything else that went on, what I do remember is one lady saying that she'd been in the programme for 6 months, and she turned up thinking that she was too far gone, that the programme would never help her. But by following it just one day at a time, her life had been transformed. And I thought, well, maybe if it can happen for her, maybe it can happen for me. So over the next year, I'd lost about 4 stone in weight, and I'd stopped binging. I hadn't given up sugar altogether, but I'd certainly stopped binging in such a major way. I'd stopped self-harming, and following the 12-step program day by day, I was starting to deal with my emotions in a healthy way, just like any normal adult would learn while they were growing up. I also have polycystic ovary syndrome, which is why I was developing the facial hair and the lack of periods as a teenager. That got diagnosed eventually when I plucked up the courage to go to the doctors when I was 21. So again, a 7-year gap of struggling with the symptoms on my own. So I'm currently the leader of the Rotherham group of Verity, which is a national support group for PCOS sufferers, their friends and their family. And November 2011, the chair of Verity sent me a quick email saying, Sharon, we've had a media request saying they want to do a programme in London for Sky about PCOS and facial hair. Would you be up for it? So without thinking, I said, yeah, why not? Thinking they'll want somebody down close to London. They won't be bothered with Rotherham. It's too far north. Anyway, that evening, a TV researcher phoned me up. I had a half-an-hour interview, and she says, yes, you're exactly what we're looking for. Can we have access to your medical records? So I said, yes, why not? And the following Saturday, I was filming down in London. And the TV programme, which went out on Sky 1 HD a couple of years ago, involved doctors Chris and Zaan van Tulleken, who were then famous for doing Medicine Men Go Wild, and subsequently Operation Ouch, Trust Me I'm a Doctor, and various other little snippets of programs that they crop up on Holiday Hit Squad. So we went into the studio and the whole program was based around Chris and Zahn's differing medical opinions. Zahn was very much the traditional doctor, keep taking the tablets and we'll give you some laser treatment to deal with your facial hair. Chris, on the other hand, was the radical one. And he said, okay, he says, my plan for you is we'll take you off some of your blood pressure medication, we'll get you working with a personal trainer, and then we will get you fit and healthy. And I then had to choose which doctor that I wanted to work with. So I'd previously had some laser funding for my facial hair, and although it was extremely painful, it did work. So I thought, well, Zahn's not really offering me anything different. Chris, however, had got a rebellious glint in his eye that appealed to my hidden rebellious nature. So I thought, yes, we'll go for Chris. So over the following 5 weeks, which took us over Christmas and New Year, 2011 into 2012, I came off some of my blood pressure tablets. I started working with a personal trainer at the gym, and the weight started coming off again. We went back for filming in January 2012, and the transformation in me just in that 5 weeks was amazing. It was like somebody had given me back that glimmer of hope. I've always enjoyed the gym, but now having a dedicated personal trainer to work with, it just helped just to give me that extra push. So the TV program finished, and then a couple of weeks after that, Dr. Chris rang me up and said, look, you know, me and Zahn have been talking, we've been very impressed with your attitude and your commitment to the program, so we would like to work with you just on a one-to-one, just on a personal mentoring scheme to get you losing more weight and get you really fit. What do you think? So I thought, give me a nanosecond, and I said yes. So over the following 2 years, from January 2012 up to Christmas last year, I've been working with Chris just on a personal one-to-one basis, no film cameras, no nothing. And I've lost in total 10 stone so far. And my life has turned around, but it hasn't just been the physical side. The emotional side has so improved. Chris has challenged me to deal with things that I would normally just run away from. And the physical challenges as well, as you will see from clicking onto the different parts of the website, the challenges that Chris has challenged me to, and the subsequent funny bits and the events that has happened. So my whole life has changed round. I'm now a qualified personal trainer myself because I feel that God has been using my experiences from the past to then help people in the future. And Big Picture Living has been launched as a way of just sharing my experience with people, with churches, with individuals, Christian and non-Christian, because my heart is just to encourage people that God has a specific plan for you. So however screwed up your life is, or even if you think life's going well but you want more, then please do get in touch. And I just trust and pray that my experiences can help you in your journey.